Cut my strings to the illusory. Cut my strings to all attachment that's binding. May I be of use, may I be of benefit, may I be of use, may I be of benefit, may I be of use. Compassionate action has no limit, like the smoke dancing in the wind, not caught or bound by anything, moving freely in the stillness of peace. I wish your mind's the state of unimpeded ease. I wish your mind's the state of unimpeded ease. Untie my knots of selfish wants. Untie my knots of hurtful thought. May I be of use, may I be of benefit, may I be of use, may I be of benefit, may I be of use. Compassionate action has no limit, like the smoke dancing in the wind, not caught or bound by anything, moving freely in the stillness of peace. I wish your mind's a state of unimpeded ease. I wish your mind's a state of unimpeded ease, like the smoke dancing in the wind, not caught or bound by anything, moving freely. I wish your mind's the state of unimpeded ease. I wish your mind's the state of unimpeded ease.
I'm so happy today, and someplace in one of the things I was reading this week, I think I was learning from Buddha chapter 2, and I got spanked. And I use that word because Buddha Master used it. He was explaining something. He said, I need to spank all of you, you know. And so I got a good spanking. And it was like so wonderful. You know, you can be bound and captured and not even know you are until somebody starts to loosen something for you. And then you find out that you're all knotted up or tied up. And as I was reading that chapter, it's sort of like a recap of a part of the Dharma of cultivation. And he says that we start with this, but when you read this, you think you know it because you know all the words in it. I mean, he uses very simple words, very simple terms, and so you think, oh yeah, I got this, and it really doesn't mean that much to you because you have to have some experience before you start to see your deficiencies throughout this. And as I was like, oh my God, I just see all of these deficiencies that I have, and it was so wonderful. Um, because you can't cure a deficiency that you don't know is there, you know. And so we can be practicing and trying as hard as we can, but yet if we don't know what we really need to work on, we just work at something, but it's not necessarily what we need to advance and go for. But when you're working on the right things because the release comes inside and your heart gets lighter and your heart gets happier. And so you laugh and you also cry. I was thinking about this kind of compassion that we have. I don't think this might be off topic. I'm not sure, but not, since I don't really have a topic, uh, it won't work. It won't mess things up too bad. Um, but it's talking about the steps that we need to follow in order. That's the important part. In order to really comprehend the broad topic of issue of cultivation and what is cultivation. And when we started this, he gave a particular method, and that was knowing who our mother is and understanding who our mother is. And he says, I deeply understand that all living beings in the six realms of reincarnation within the three spheres of the universe have since beginningless time been my fathers and mothers in the revolving cycle of reincarnation. Now, this is a method, right? Um, so this is a method of working with the mind. And I'm going to tell you how important methodology can be. Could somebody see if I have a different pair of glasses that's like half glasses? Because when I look out, I I can't see. Are those narrower than these? I'm sorry, I left mine.
Yes.
Oh yeah, great. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay.
Just listen today then. Oh, lovely, lovely. I'm good, sister. I'm good. Oh, well, let me see. So she can have hers back if they work for me. I apologize for this. Oh, no. Understanding who my mother is. And I was thinking about it, like I went through the exercise of doing this, like all living beings have been my mother and my father, and I did it for a little bit, and then I've done that part, so I'm done with that, and I go on to the next thing, bearing in mind kindness. Now, this is getting more towards where I can really grasp something. I should deeply bear in mind that all of my parents, who are our parents are all living beings, that now exist in the cycle of reincarnation, have since beginningless time given birth to me, reared me, loved me, became tired and ill for me. Their kindness to me is as heavy as a mountain. I should bear in mind their kindness, and I will then regard the sufferings of my parents, that is, all living beings, as my own suffering. That's a great mental exercise, you know. Um, and so I did that and went on to repaying kindness. And so first was understanding who my mother is, all living beings, bearing in mind the kindness then that they had to birth me, rear me, love me, take care of me, all of that. Then it's going to repaying kindness. Um, I understand that my parents, all living beings, have offered me everything. They're now revolving and wandering in the six realms of reincarnation, and they are experiencing suffering. I resolve to take action to enlighten myself and others to save and liberate my parents. That's all living beings, in order to repay their kindness to me. Now, this is getting a little bit nebulous. Um, but it's still like a mental exercise. It's something that I'm training the mind to hold as true for the sake of shifting the mind's view towards self and others, like uh, um, bringing in, collapsing that distance between self and others, or between others and mine, like my family, my children, my lover, then it goes into loving kindness. Now I'm in good space right there. At all times, through the actions of my three karmas, I'm loving and kind towards all living beings who have been my parents. I wish them a long life without illness, good fortune, good luck, and a happy life. Now, I could delete that last part of that sentence. I'm loving and kind towards all living beings who have been my parents. No, that was an exercise, and now I've just kind of left that. So I'm loving and kind towards all beings. I wish them a long life. This is Pannavati, being loving and kind towards all beings and wishing them a long life. But but now I've kind of left off the line who have been my parents. That was a training exercise. Training is over. Now I'm in real life, and I'm being loving and kind. I really have that kind of heart of kindness towards all beings, and I'm sure you do too. And so then, and so now I'm done with loving kindness, and I go on to compassion. Day and night, I beseech all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to empower all of my parents, that is, all living beings, so that they may extricate themselves from all forms of suffering, encounter and practice the Buddha Dharma, and liberate themselves from the suffering of cyclic existence. Now I'm getting further and further away because I've dropped off all living beings who have been my parents. So the connection that keeps this growing is the understanding that all living beings have been our mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters since beginningless time. And if that's not a real thing for you, then you will never think of them as anything other than separate by a vast degree from those who are near and close in this particular incarnation. And so it would be extremely difficult then to sever the kind of attachment we have to those who are close and dear. And it would be extremely difficult to bring close those who are not close in this incarnation. And I could see how it limited my capacity to hold, but it eliminated my capacity to cut back my attachment to those who are near and dear, and how it limited my capacity to bring close those who are far. And in that space, I just broke down in tears because I thought I was so loving and compassionate. Anybody can come and need anything. If I have it, you can have it. You can stab me in the back today and come and need something tomorrow. If I have it, I give it to you. Because I uh, that is where I am, and I can say that because I know that is the truth about me. I might not have agreed with what you did, but still, if you have a need, your need is my need. Mm. And so, and so I thought I was in really good shape, in other words, until I read this, and suddenly it jumped out for me about all living beings, you know, me having a mind that they are my parents. Now, first started with this, well, like I was having an issue with my mother to begin with. I mean, it's rectified now, but she's dead. I wish I could have rectified it before she died. But I wasn't in that place. I didn't have that view. I didn't have, so I had mother issues. And everything I read about a mother, I didn't want to take it to, I couldn't go that deep in it because I got stopped at my perceived experience of this life and what I felt was lacking towards me. And so it was very difficult. But as time went on, and I was trying to put into practice the different Buddhist concepts and precepts, what happened was my view of my mother changed. I no longer saw all of what she was doing, and I no longer blamed her for things. But what I could see is that the issue that I was having with her came about because she had the same issues with her mother, which came about because maybe she had the same issues with her mother. I don't know. But I was seeing that it was the fruit of something, it was the result of something because causes produce conditions, and those conditions become new causes that produce conditions. And in understanding this through the Buddha Dharma, I stopped blaming her for however she, however I maybe not just perceived her to be, but however she was based on causality. You see, so trying to forgive an individual can be really, really difficult. But if we go outside of the notion of there being an individual and we understand causality, then we can deal with causality. We can clearly understand causality. And when we impute causality onto every situation, what's occurring with every individual in our life, then the blame that we have placed on them falls away. The disappointment that we have concerning how they related to us falls away because we can see so clearly that they are caught in a cycle. I mean, now I'm caught in that same cycle. Like, so if I have animosity towards my mother, how does that make me better than my mother? It doesn't. But we can't see it when we're feeling something without the wisdom of the Dharma to shed light so that you can actually see what's happening and actually see what's going on. This is how suffering is uprooted in us. We have to have clear seeing, and it takes the prajna light, the light of prajna, to illuminate the space so that we can actually see what's in the room and how it occurred. So the answer for all of our dysfunction around hurt feelings, around not being appreciated, around not being seen or feeling that we're not being seen, all of this is crafted in a mind of ignorance. But when the mind of light manifests, then all of that just falls away. And so I'm thinking while I was doing my practice, like I'm in a really good space. I ain't mad with nobody. I got food, clothing, and shelter. I don't really have to do anything. I'm so old. I'm not required to start a new project. Like, what you're gonna do with your life? I'm just about finished with that. I'm like, I'm not gonna like get in a really, really, really good space. And I'm vibing in this good space. I don't have to get up in the morning and go to work. I can sit here on my bed and do my meditation. I don't have to clean up the house because Kay likes doing that and I don't. And she does that. I don't have to, just everything, like how wonderful, truly wonderful my life is. And then I read this and I see this part about all living beings as my mother. And I realized I dropped that part off a long time ago. So I'm going to be limited now. The spaces I want to get in, I can't get into them because it has to be a mind that's bigger than my little family pool. It has to be a mind that's bigger than my little, ethnic group or my nationalistic circle, or it's got to be, or my little religious, community, or it's a mind has to be vaster than that. And so I saw what I needed to do. I needed to go back and deeply bear in mind that all living beings have been my mother and my father. And as I started thinking of that, there was like a breakthrough, something, uh, something that I could not untie in my Pannavati self. Just, it's like a rubber band that just snapped. And suddenly I felt a kind of compassion it's indescribable. I'm saying that a compassion that I have for others is a very narrow kind of self-imputed compassion. But true compassion engulfs you in a certain way. And it's not that you're compassionate towards others, but you are suddenly the recipient of the compassion of every other being. Suddenly I realized and I I could sense all that has gone into uh, producing or making Panyawadi. I thought about like the clothes I had on and who made them. I didn't make them. You know, I thought about the bed I was laying on and who made it, who built that bed. I didn't do it. I thought about the house that I was in and who built that house. I didn't build it. I thought about the food in the refrigerator and like who grew it. I didn't grow it. I thought about and suddenly all the compassion that I had to offer people was so minuscule and insignificant compared to all of the compassion that I was receiving through all of the means that I recognize living, starting from making me. And through every minute of the day, somebody's compassion is shining forth in my life. And I couldn't see that because I was so busy. Well, not even so busy, but even if occasionally thinking about what one is offering. So we shouldn't get this wrong as we're doing our cultivation. That's where I'm going with this. No, because I don't want you to come up to the end of your life and realize, I missed it. You know, how wonderful it is to have a teacher who can point us to the spaces, between the lines so that we can really understand something, that we can really cultivate a mind that is not just a good, ordinary mind. Because the usage and the capacity for accomplishment and the works that follow it, these works and greater works than these, come on the basis of really contemplating deeply. And so we're getting to some places now where we're being invited to contemplate deeply. And so he goes to the next one, renouncing greed. Now, everybody knows, like we know, what greed is, right? And greed to us is mostly attached to what? Money, stuff. And so most of us, when we're, in a place that we're studying the Dharma, we have, we're coming into this space with a little bit of good seed, a little bit of growth, a little bit of, and so I hold no attachment in my mind to anything. What things? This is the greed he's talking about now. I hold no attachment in my mind to anything that I do to benefit living beings who've been my parents. I cultivate non attachment to all of my good actions of body, speech, and mind. Thus, my good actions become just natural and spontaneous as my original nature is goodness. I do not do good purposefully, I just do good and then forget about it. So you see how he transferred greed. So when we're reading about greed, hatred, and delusion, we have to know at what level of engagement we need to uh, look into concerning ourselves. So greed on one hand might be one who's grasping for the things of others and who's never satisfied, like a hungry ghost, never have enough. It's never enough. It's never enough. And that's one level of greed. But now for spiritual practitioners, he's talking about a different level or a different understanding of greed and where our greed manifests or where greed manifests. It's going to a little bit deeper, and that has to do with attachment to our good works, attachment to how nice we are, attachment to and it doesn't mean don't be nice. It doesn't mean, but I'm talking about seeing it as something because it sets up an expectation then in our minds that take us away from our capacity to see I offer one thing, but 10,000 things are being offered to me. The person who made these clothes and now knocking on my door saying, I made that for you. You should be glad. The food that's in my refrigerator, source anonymous to me. And it shifts your relationship and your connection and your capacity and your skillfulness to be available. It is a coming back together of every single thing, every single dharma in the universe. And you start not being separate, not only from anybody, but not separate from anything. And it establishes a kind of impartial mind, but a high level impartial mind. Impartial in the sense of the things that we're struggling intellectually to straighten out. It takes the differentiation away. So when he talks about this non-differentiating mind, he doesn't mean a mind that doesn't see anything or that can't recognize anything. He just says it's a mind of equality. And without that mind of equality, we're just ordinary. The thing is that when one develops that mind of equality and nurtures it, though, in their own mind, they become just ordinary. But in their actions, they become extraordinary. Why? Because of the non-differentiating mind, the impartial mind. Now, it seems like an oxymoron that the more you go towards things being equal or impartial, the more everything seems to take on a different quality or a kind of uh, 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 a greater value, I'll say. Everything, everyone becomes more exalted, more understood, more cherished, more nurtured, more loved, more seen. And this is the path of growth. So less becomes more until finally you go less and less and less and less, and you inherit the whole thing. I read a story about a young man. Well, he's not that young. He's as young as my children, though. I think he's about 50 now. And I sent it to a few of you because he's his father is a billionaire, and he's the heir to, and he's the only son. And when he was 18, he went. He decided, you just find things to try to do, especially if you're rich like that, you got it like that. I mean, how many more things can you get, and it'd be exciting for you? So he thought, for a little fun, he'd go to a monastery and try asceticism for a couple of weeks. And he went, and he ended up becoming a monk. And so he lives on alms. He's Theravadan monk. And I happened to be reading chapter 2 of Learning from Buddha. And he talked about the order in which things come to you. And I looked at how perfectly in order his life was. He'd come to the end of good fortune, so there was nothing else to grasp for. And when he stepped into that monastery, he was able to just so quickly enter into the Arhat path because there was nothing unknown to him in the realm of fortune. And so there was nothing in his mind, and he understood it so well because he said, I can use whatever I need to use. If I need to see my father, I just hop on his private jet and go see him. It's quick, it's right there, it's available, it's really mine for usage, and I'll go. And I'll spend time with them because it's filial affection. And his father, who was non-religious and didn't like anything, has now become a devout Buddhist. A Buddha, at first he had a problem with that, like this is my only son, and I mean, it kind of has the Buddha story. So, but in observing his son, in living his life, he gained such respect for it. So now his billions are dedicated to doing things like he bought, I'm sure he's bought lots of things, but one thing they highlighted was that he bought a retreat center. Now his son still stays in the forest, but he'll go to the retreat center and he'll hold retreats for the people that come there. But in his own way, his father is now participating in the work of the Buddha Dharma. Now, he would have had to live a certain example before his father for his father to be moved like this. And I just looked at that, and my heart was so gladdened. So I looked at my family, and well, I have one daughter that is still struggling some, and I try to help her out. I don't mean financially. I mean with just how she understands life, And but I can't live her life for her. But I felt insufficient or inadequate that I could not mm, live for her in such a way that she saw something in my model that could shake her and bring her uh, to a higher. Uh, it's hard to talk about it because she can say all the right things. She does all the right things. She's the go-to person for everybody else. She's the kind who can write a book on these things. You just don't need to know her personal life because her personal life would not be like the book, you know. And I see that so much in life. The experts who write these books, that's their wish list. That's not how they really think. That's not how their life really goes. They have just worked it all out in their mind, and then they put this book out here, and you buy it, and you think when I used to be on the circuit, all I saw was messed up people trying to heal other people. You step behind stage, the one who's so calm out on the stage, step behind stage, and they're freaking out about things, and they're being mean and nasty. Get on stage, and they're like beautiful, like an angel you know, and you run and you buy their book. And that book is full of pithy sayings, but the energetic undertone of that book lies in the true life of the author. So what I'm saying to you is that I'm constantly looking at myself, you know. And one thing that I discovered is, and I didn't know this because I'm pretty much a straight shooter. But when it comes to her, I say she suffers so much. Maybe I could be the one person who would not like just be on her, you know. And I so rarely see her once every few years. I'm not there with her. So who am I, you know, to criticize her life? And she was here with me a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago. Time goes by so fast. I mean, it was a short visit. I don't know. I think maybe 3 days or 2 days or something like that. But that was 2 or 3 days that I had that I could have really shared some things with her, even if she had left angry with me. Mm. But I felt like 2 or 3 days wasn't enough time to establish a relationship to get into it with her, right? And so I didn't. I just enjoyed my time with her. And she enjoyed her time with me. And on one level, maybe that's enough, you know? You just have to know which level you're on. I'm not really here for her enjoyment at this stage because soon I will be useless to her. And she'll only have to reflect upon the wisdom that I gave her while I was here. But the part of me that wanted to be that wanted her daughter to know that she was loved won out. And I didn't say to her things that really on my heart to say, even if you can't receive it now, you know, I know the time will come that you will. And I didn't say those things. So now I got to hook up again. You see, I got to go back and fix it now. I got to have a new hookup. But many times, and I had to but this is what took me there that allowed me to see this. Um, Holding no attachment in my mind to anything I do to benefit any living beings. And I realized that I was holding an attachment of being the good mother in my mind. I'm always talking about mothers who have children who are 70 years old and they're still trying to run their life. And I'm saying, like, don't do that. That's their life. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't that kind of mother, and that I wasn't seen as that kind of mother. So to not be seen as that kind of mother, I restrained myself, and I didn't share with her truth that the hearing of it is the seeding of freedom. So we have to not be afraid to fearlessly defend the Dharma. And that's not an easy thing to do. Partly because we know our own shortcomings, so can't defend too much if you're also guilty of a lot of things yourself. You know? So what does Buddha say? Do then take care of those. Take care of those things. We know what they are, but we don't really want to address them because that just seems like a little bit too much, too much honesty. There's still a stake that we have in it for ourselves. We still want to be seen and held and understood and loved in a certain way. And that attachment to self then is the very thing that disqualifies us from the level of accomplishment we seek when we're doing our personal practice. See, we have to hear this again and again, or we certainly have to ponder it again and again to lose the fear that self is so desperately clinging to. So when I get a comeuppance like this, like I'm eternally grateful because, like, I'm working. I'm working at this. I'm working at awakening. I don't want my effort to be in vain. I mean, like, just don't work on it. Like I used to say, if you're gonna go to hell like a man. Just go. I mean, but don't be half stepping, shucking and jiving, and just still go. You know, and so this is how deeply we have to think about things. Now, this is the real work. I I read something in where he was asking, "What is Buddha Dharma?" And I listened to, or I read all of the different explanations that people gave him of what Buddha Dharma is. And everything they said was something that he had said about what Buddha Dharma was. But he said, those answers are so stupid, they don't even deserve a response. And I'm like, well, good thing I didn't take that test then because I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know what it is because I would have said those answers. Those answers would have been the answers that I gave. You know, but what he's taking us to is from hearing things and getting concepts in our head versus the actual walking out. He said, I'll just tell you. He said, because I don't want to hear any more. I don't even want to hear any more answers. He said, and I'll just tell you. It's your it's your preliminaries practice, your main practice, and your complete practice of one taking oneself as an enlightened being and resting in that vacancy of mind. Said that's what Buddha Dharma is. So if you're not doing that, then you and Buddha Dharma are really not connected. You're like just hearing some teachings, you're like hearing some stories, you're like thinking about some things, but your three commas of thought, speech, and action is the only place that Buddha Dharma actually occurs in line with the model that we have of enlightened thought, enlightened speech, enlightened action. And so that brings this dharmic walk to a really narrow place, doesn't it? We have all the lofty places we can go in our mind, although we have the thousands and tens of thousands of Dharma books that we can read, but it's not to be found in any of that. It's found only in our thoughts, our speech, and our action. And of our thoughts and speech and action, it is found primarily in action. Doesn't It's action is everything. It's everything. It's not. It's everything because the thoughts um, turn into action, and the speech sets action in motion. It's action. Everything is about action, and so we should be constantly looking at our actions, see if our actions line up with our thought, see if our actions line up with what we say, and if it doesn't, you don't have to blab and tell it. You just take care of it. You start bringing them in line. That's like every time you see that you strayed, get back on the path. Just bringing it right back in line. That's something that we have to do. And to do that, we have to have a motivation to do that. And so he talks about what arouses motivation. But before you can have the motivate, so you know where we're going very soon. Before you can have the motivation, there's some other things because they inspire motivation, and you can't be inspired by anything you haven't yet heard, and so and you can't hear if you're not in a close enough proximity to the voice to hear it. And so he starts right there where we are. I mean, take one step back, 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 and then suddenly it all makes sense. But in the beginning, it does not make sense, and that's where one has to have a heart of trust or a heart of faith, willing to embrace something. So we should not expect to be perfect. But we should rejoice when we see and recognize our shortcomings. Now, it's another whole way of living. To see it is better than not seeing it. Ignorance is not bliss. But when we can see it without a weight and without a guilt, it's like, oh, that's why I'm here. It just removes all doubt. And I know that I'm moving beyond that space because now I can see it. So when he was talking about Sariputta, and he was being, oh, by the way, I read whatever page that was, 289 or 270, 178, and he was talking about the same thing that he's talking about on 211. So I said, Soma, I said, did I really say once someone, she said, yeah, you did. So I turned to my book at 178, and then I had it down there, and it says in my notes, Hinayana analysis of emptiness. And here we are on 207, and he's still talking about the Hinayana analysis of emptiness. But he takes it up and he goes a little further than that. Remember that we said he was talking about practitioners of non-Buddhist ways within Buddhism who wear robes and other Buddhist terminology. And that's why when he asked what is Buddha Dhamma, and they started giving him all this Buddhist terminology, he was like, stop talking. I don't want to hear anymore, because it was just uttering Buddhist terminology. He says, and that they should also be considered those who are outside Buddhism. Outside is in contradistinction to inside. It is not derogatory. It just says that outside paths have not reached the absolute truth of prajna, so cannot lead to the ending of cyclic existence. That's why they are, for the time being, for the purpose of this discussion, placed outside of Buddhism. That's on page 205. So he went on and said that when his teacher and his teachers were teachers of non-Buddhist teachings, right? Sariputta, who is considered his foremost disciple in Yeah, in wisdom. Yep, his foremost disciple in Prajna. His teachers were outside of the Dharma, of course. Well, all of them were, right, at this point. Okay, after going there and listening to the Buddha impart the Dharma, he immediately released the conditions that bound his mind. He being who? Sariputta released the conditions that bound his own mind. He had to release them. He had to take that which he had learned and release that. And I gave the example of like the monkey puts his hands in the peanut jar, and he's got such a big hand of peanuts, he can't get his hand out the jar. He wants more. He wants the peanuts in the jar, but unless he lets go of something, he's not going to have anything. And so that's what happens to us a lot. That's how we get turned around, get confused because we want to hold everything that we have because it has meaning for us. It gives us a sense of safety and comfort. Comfort. It gives us uh, much like the nurturing and the caring of a baby. But if you look at a 2 year old, a 3 year old, it's very different than holding a 2 month old. A 2 month old finds comfort in being held. By the time they're two, they don't want, they're falling all out. They don't want to be in your arms. You're trying to hold them, and they're trying to, you know. And so it's because they're moving beyond that place of the safety of being kept. It's part of the nature, to expand. Um, and so it's like that. So you have a preteen, or used to be a preteen, and then you have the teenager. When I was 13, and the next sibling close to me was uh, maybe 17, I think. Like, she didn't want to be seen with me. And my father would always say, I'll go with her. Take her with you. Like, it's like I don't I don't want this 13-year-old tagging on with me. And so as we go through the various stages of independence and putting to the test, you know, what we know and who we are and carving our way out, we necessarily have to let some. We're the only ones who want to keep whatever comfort gave us, ever comfort we received at this, we want to keep that all the way up. And that's why we're 35-year-olds, with the temperament of 13-year-olds, because we have not been willing to step outside of that space of comfort. It just feels so good. And so we stay there, but we can't grow. But he immediately, he's hearing a Dharma, he's hearing something that he has never heard before, and it has some kind of power. It has something there for him because it's holding his attention. Otherwise, he would have said none of that, and he would have left. But because the ripening was there, because it was the time for this fruit to come forth, karmically, he was there. And recognizing that, he immediately released the conditions that bound his mind because his wisdom, that what he already had, was so high. As soon as he listened to the Buddha Dharma, as soon as he listened to the Buddha impart prajna, he immediately realized the state of a Savaka and Pachika Buddha. And so he stayed like this 19-year-old, 18-year-old billionaire's 18-year-old son of the billionaire. And he became a monk and practiced. Then, according to the previous teachings that he had, no, practiced according to the Buddha's teachings. And so he attained the realization of a great arhat. He cultivated himself earnestly and attained the stage of a great arhat. So he says, as we learn from Buddha now, we don't necessarily have to follow a certain person, because when he was dying, he said, "Who will?" When they were saying like, "Oh, you're dying. Who you going to appoint? Who's going to take over? Who's going to be in charge? Who's going to?" He said, "Who's going to be our teacher?" He said, "When did I ever say I was your teacher?" No. So he considered himself as the model, the example, the mirror, in that teacher, in that sense. That's why you have to be genuine and you have to be authentic, because you're just a mirror. So he asked, were there any disciples like that here? And he talked about some people. And then he went on and he said, this is the part that I'm getting to. This is where my own study, you know, tied in, and what's going on in my own life tied in uh, to our lesson here. You have to find the connections. You have to look for them too, because they can be hard to see, but everything is connected. And so he says, Sariputta was very amazing. You disciples should strive to be like him and also become amazing. He took the opportunity, because he attained the fruit of great arhatship. He took the opportunity of the Heart Sutra Dharma Assembly to initiate karmic conditions. I'm in the middle of 206. To initiate karmic conditions during that Dharma Assembly. He did not do that for his own sake. He did that for the sake of initiating karmic conditions, for the sake of arising of all such karmic conditions, so that karmic conditions would come together to bring about the Heart Sutra, and that its teachings would be imparted to living beings. And that's when I lost it. At that moment, there was Sariputta, you know, bringing forth this conversation for me. I don't know how far back, how long ago, that was, but I never thought about it in this way. That he brought about that so that it would trickle down however many generations it is now, that I could be reading the story in my own heart and mind opening, to be able to receive the Bodhisattva mind and to be able to take up the Bodhisattva path and understand it. And I would be able to cultivate the mind of a Buddha. So then my mind went back to 1985 when I left my congregation at a friend's church and walked out. And I said, I'm walking out because I don't just want to worship Jesus. I want to be like him. I want to be conformed to his very image. I want the training that develops me for that. Where can I find that? Now I find that I'm coming up to the fulfillment of my heart's desire, the fulfillment of the question that I posed in 1985. And just coming to that space, reading the Dharma of cultivation. I've read this book about, I don't know, 30 times, but every time I read it, I see something else. But at this particular time, due to different pieces of the puzzle being put into place, just to the extent that I can handle it, just to the extent that I want it, just to the extent that I'm willing to put forth a little bit of effort to investigate a little deeper, than rather than to just like give myself some mind candy. Just, you know. So the Dharma is to each one of us what it is to each one of us. And it really like reigns in the universe, doesn't it? I mean, we think universe and it's like vast and it's so much and it's, it's all of that. But it seems to like circle right back around and it is near, it's as close as your breath, the totality of the universe. And suddenly I was this close to Sariputta. And I realized that he did this for me. It says that prajna is divided into many, many levels. And he beseeched the impartation of such marvelous principles. So Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva decided to give that discourse. Still, it definitely takes the wisdom of Sariputta in order to understand its meaning. So now I'm beginning to look at this not as I think about myself. Just having a mind of humility makes one not boast, not think of oneself more highly than they should, but it also makes one not deny, because I am beginning to understand the meaning. And I would lie if I said I didn't, if I wasn't, you know. So you're able to hold this and you can balance along that tandem any way that you need to. So when I'm thinking that I know something or I'm thinking I'm so good, I know how to balance that out with I know nothing in the scope of what there is to know. I've realized nothing, just illusions in my mind. And that the times that I'm thinking I'm a worm, I'm lower than dirt, I can't do anything right. I'm such a mess up. I keep dealing with this one issue, this habitual tendency. Then he's reminding us of our intrinsic nature. And that's all we do all day long, moving in and out or up and down or back and forth across that spectrum concerning everything. But in time, we will become stable in it. I mean, before we didn't even know we were going back and forth. Then when we knew we were going back and forth, but we didn't know how not to go back and forth. But now we can go back and forth and know when we're deliberately going back and forth because I don't feel like doing something different at this time. Like, yes, I know this is the wrong thing, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I was looking at some of the decisions that I make, and I'm saying, like, it's when you make a deliberate decision that you have to pay close attention. When you're spontaneously doing something, spontaneously enjoying something, spontaneous meaning without so much deliberation, without the thought, well, you could be reading your Dharma, but now you're watching this show instead, like I know I am. And then you're going back and forth and you're having all of this internal dialogue about this thing, then it's a contrived action. But when you're just watching it and you're enjoying it, and when you finish that and you go and you pick up a Dharma book and you're reading that and you're enjoying that, those are kind of like spontaneous actions. But when we put too much effort into something with that dichotomy of right and wrong, we have missed it. Not saying that there is not, in a sense, what is right and wrong, but just thinking about it in terms of useful and beneficial and what is done through ease, not through efforting, and not through thinking in one's mind, I must do this, even though he says develop the firm determination, I must now. But you have to understand how to do that. It doesn't mean that you push, push constantly against, but that when one says I must, one begins to look at the benefits and weigh it. How much does it mean? It means a lot to me. By the time you come up with all your reasons too, you like feeling inclined to do it. If you're coming up with all your reasons why not right now, it's not right now. And when you recognize, oh, I could have really done that, but I was selfing, then just recognize that. And once you file that little note away, this is what I do when I want to, just keep doing what I'm doing, even though I know or feel like or have this nudging to do something different. You just note that. But as you're making these little notes about yourself, you know, you're changing, you're shifting, you're counting up the cost, you're weighing, you're evaluating, you're being uh, respectful. When I say being tough on yourself, you're being respectful to what you know is your capacity sometimes. Sometimes you're just being cherishing and nurturing to yourself. And after a while, you start to know when is the right time to do the right thing. Because number one, you're starting to know your own mind. That's the only one you can know. And we don't even know those, that's why we think so much, because we wonder, like, why did I do that? And, because we don't. But then you start to be at peace with yourself. You actually start to love yourself, not in a selfish kind of way, but with the kind of cherishing that you can also then have for others. So he says it still definitely takes the wisdom of Sariputta in order to understand. Had the discourse been given to people other than Sariputta, they would not have understood. It was also in accordance with the maturing of causes and conditions that Sariputta's name was specifically called out. And that was to point out about fu, right? Meaning not or non. So it was pointing us to this, to what we call the Dhammakaya body, that not self or non-self. And so all of these are methods by which we can cut our delusionary thinking or understanding about about the self or who we think we are. I act out of who I think I am. I'm imparting the Dharma here. You disciples are unable to understand. There is a reason for that. Okay, so I just got let off the hook because a lot, like I would say, I don't understand. Some I do, some I don't. He says it's a reason you can't understand. It is because no matter what aspect it may be, you should be very humbled when being compared to Sariputta. Were you able to make use of your mother's mouth to speak? Did you mount the rostrum to debate at the age of 7? And was talking about how at 7 he was already giving Dharma talks. Buddha Master was giving Dharma talks at the age of 2. He had disciples who were Dharma kings and tukus and Vajra masters at the age of 7. Do we expect to have that mind? No, but we have a mind that recognizes that there is another mind to have, and that we are capable of uncovering that. And it is found only within us. So it's like that tuning fork. If you're trying to tune up a piano or an instrument to A tuning fork, I mean, it sets the tone and it sets a vibration, and you can easily slide to it. You can tighten to it. You can loosen to it. It's not like, where's the tune? What is the tune? What is that sound? What sound would that be? I mean, but this is like striking, and you hear the sound, and that sound, the more that you hold it, the more you effortlessly tune to it. So he says, I'm not talking about some of you here who have advanced to a certain stage of bodhisattvahood. As to you disciples who have not, you are quite lacking indeed. It's impossible for you to understand. That is because one must have the wisdom of Sariputta to be able to understand the Dharma imparted by Avalokiteshvara. So we have to keep a beginner's mind. And I know, because if we do, then that cuts off the penetration. It cuts off, and we're just left with whatever we know then. Thus, one cannot use the mind consciousness of an ordinary being to analyze what the meaning of this is and what the meaning of that is, and so on. So, but you still have to analyze, you still have to turn the light inward and introspect. And so great questions lead to great awakening. Small questions lead to small awakening. No questions lead to no awakening. Now, it didn't say great questions lead to great answers. It said great questions lead to great awakening. So we should ask the questions, and we wait for the unfoldment of the answer. There's hardly a question that you can answer that you could ask that some answer doesn't come in a way that you can understand it. I mean, I get an email from somebody almost every day. On Monday, she understands. She has a question, and I'll say ponder it. On Tuesday, she has an answer. On Wednesday, she has another answer. On Thursday, she has another answer. On Friday, she has another answer. The answers just keep coming. So when she asks me a question, I don't even try to answer it. I just say good question, or keep pondering, or wrong question, that doesn't relate to that. Keep thinking, or stop thinking, but I don't even try to answer them, because anything I say is going to be something coming from the outside, you know, of trying to make an impression on that mind. But he's saying here, when we ponder the question, the answer is going to begin to bubble up to the top, because we have the capacity to know the answer. It lies in our Buddha nature. How wonderful that is. So when I can't get something, and I'm going to try to find an answer to my question, but if the answer doesn't come, I just leave it. Later on, 2 days later, a week later, an hour later, something comes into my purview that addresses that question in some kind of way. Just try and see. It addresses that question in some kind of way, but not in a question answer kind of way, but in a usage kind of way. How, in a way that it can be used in your life, around something that you're dealing with, or somebody that you're dealing with, or something that you're going through, or just how to hold something, or to think about something, or how to let go of something. Like we talk about the power of forgetting, and there's one kind of teaching that encourages us to never forget. And because, you know, that's so ingrained in the mind, never forget what they did to us. It becomes something that's like a neurosis. And for that one, sometimes you just have to forget something to free yourself. A lot of times we're holding on to things, something somebody did to us, right? And like sometimes they forgot. Sometimes I tell somebody about something. Remember when you did something? So I said, no, I didn't do that. Oh, yes, you did. And but they've forgotten all about it. You're still in pain about it, because Never forget. They're not even thinking about it. And so you're keeping yourself in a kind of pain, in a kind of crisis situation, in a kind of high alert, in a looking suspicion, in you, and it's all in your mind. Oh my gosh, we are such, well, I was going to say drama queens, but then somebody might take dramaites. We're such dramaites, because we're always creating a story in our mind, carrying on, continuing a story. It's something that in the space of reality came, it arose, it was manifested, and it subsided, and it's gone. Except we keep it alive. We keep it alive. And that's not a real thing. It's not. It has come, it has happened, and it is gone. But we turn it into a perpetual something. And then we think other people have given us anxiety. But it's our anxiety around the things that we grasp and hold on to in our own mind. So even when someone hurts you, when someone rejects you, we got to let these things go. Try it, he said. But I can't. What value does it hold for you if it pains you? If you want to I said it, and it's going to be my constant mantra going forward from this point, because we can't keep starting over. If you want to stake a claim for your, what's a good word? Limitations. Want to stake a claim for your limitations? I'm going to leave you with them. They're all yours. But you don't have to. You have to really not want them. And the way that you not want them is when they arise in front of you. I don't say you resist them. You just turn from them. You don't have an interest in their story. And the more you can lose interest in their story, the more energy you free up to do something different. I'm taking, of course, I've been so concerned about, I can't find my words a lot now, as you notice. So I worry about it sometimes. I'm frustrated. I won't say I worry about it, but I am a little frustrated by it sometimes because I use words for impact, and when I can't find the word I want, I'm frustrated a little bit. But I just stopped being frustrated about that. I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, then I'll just stop teaching. That'll fix that. I'll just quit. I'll do something else. I'll write or I'll sing or I'll do nothing. I like my solitude now. I'm getting a chance to catch up on some things. For me, I like that. I do that. So if I can't remember the words, then I just stop. You know. And when I did that, that helped really lay an axe to where that train my mind was on. You know, I really did. It really did. And so I'd been looking for about 6 months of things to help me with my brain power. I don't want to take any more pills. I don't want, I don't want to do that. I have to take something, then that's okay. Um, and I finally enrolled in a course that helps you with your memory because the man said the right thing. He said, you don't have a problem really with your memory, you have a problem with associations because everything we remember has associations. So I'm going to teach you a way of associating and and not trying to go and look in a file for something because that's my mind's way of thinking about it. Where is that? Where is that? It's in my head somewhere. It's in some file. I sent the messenger to get it. It'll come in a few minutes and then I'll give it to you. So I'm looking in the files, right? Then I'm on day number 3. And in day number 1, he gave us a list of 20 words. I couldn't remember anything but the first word and I think maybe 2 of the other words. And he says, now I want you to give me those 20 words back in order. And there was no way, sister, and, and there was no way I could do that. So I said, okay, I'm going to see if I can get a refund on this class. I should have tried this one a few years ago, a little too late now. And he says, no, no. He says, stay with me. He said, those of you who are ready to give up now, just stay with me. And we went through the thing, and it was terrible. I think I had 3 out of the 20 words. No. Then he started teaching a method. I'm not going into it, but he started teaching a method of how to associate every word. And I'm going to tell you in 5 minutes, I have all of those 20 words in the order. I was so proud to walk around the house with Kay, you know, and and I'm just rattling them off to her, these 20 words. Now it took me a while, to get, but I could have a minute to think of the association that I made when I came up with the word. But then I did it a second time and it was faster. I did it a third time, it was faster. And to just have the 20 words like that, and I could really say them now. Number 1 is sun. Number 2 is socks. Number 3 is traffic light. Number 4 is car. Number 5, I mean, I can do it even right now because I learned something about words and my association with certain things for words. So I feel so encouraged because I found I'm developing a, a new skill, and I'm just excited to see where it's gonna take me because as I'm getting something, um, I have something to say, but I have to be able to find my words. You see, and so this is how we can get out of our stuck places. There is something. I found an Ozempic doctor, and so next week my Ozempic will be here, and I'm going to lose the 30 pounds that are wrapped around my midsection. That's it. That's just it. You know, and I can take it because I'm diabetic. So they're going to work with the other 2 insulins I'm on, and one of them. So I'll be on 3 now. One will be Ozempic that will actually, because this is creating a problem, a health. I'm at a health crisis point around the fat that's around, which comes from insulin makes you fat. And so, that's like never, that's like a dog chasing his tail. So I need that. And and so I've got this. So I was like, one by one, I've got all of these things that I'm taking care of. But it's like a sister's children. I mean, I'm not frantic and not anxious about things, but just one by one, being able to take care of. You need to handle your own problems. Being able to take care of things that need to be taken care of. That is Dharma power in your life. You know, that's how I understand and attribute in a real and a living way, you know. And if I'm at some places where I can't take up something right now, I can rest in not now. for that. There's some things that's on my to-do list that's definitely not now, but I can just begin to see this, that it's all about action and the action that we take in our lives, and how the Dharma helps us by freeing our mind and our heart and our spirit in such a way that we can take care of things, that we can come to some decision about something, and that we can take up something and do it with a certain kind of tenacity that's not violent towards us. We have to wait till we get pushed and have to, but it doesn't have to be that way. And so it's just learning how to maneuver life in this kind of way to solve our own problems, knowing that there is the power of the Dharma. The mantra is the action of the holy beings upon us. We might be uttering the mantra, but it's the key that gives them access, that gives us access to them, and then that we are allowing them access to us to share with us their vibration that puts us in tune with the superior mind. When I say the mind, I don't mean the ordinary human consciousness, but I'm talking about the Buddhic consciousness. And once I tune to that frequency, then I know what that mind knows. I didn't have to read it in a book. You didn't have to tell me. I know what that mind knows the more that I attune with the frequency of that mind. That's why you become like who you hang with. So that's my question: who you hang with? This is a lot. I think I don't want to leave this. I think he leaves this there and he goes somewhere, and then he comes back. So I think I'd like to close with we need to understand clearly the aggregate of form, one of the five aggregates. The aggregate of form is the most important one. If one realizes the emptiness of the aggregate of form, the other aggregates will naturally be realized as empty. Okay. So that means it's like five dominoes, right? But if you knock over this one, it topples the other. You don't even have to master all five. Just master what? Master the right one. You master the right one, it topples the other four. And that's how you make leaps in your progress, leaps in your understanding. And so everything whatsoever that is subject to impermanence is what we call form. So that's including humans or sentient beings, not just humans, but sentient beings and insentient things: rock, floor, table, bell, cup. So-called form is not just the things that we see, like colors seen by our eyes, or solid objects that we see, but it also includes form that's non-visible. For instance, we don't see the air in here, but we recognize that air is present, right? And this space it's a non-physical form of form. Yes.
So is that when he sticks to manifest form? Is that what he's referring to?
So, yes. So manifest form is that which has come into some kind of form that's within the bandwidth of our faculties to see or to recognize. So a dog has different bandwidth, so they can see some things we don't see. Cats have a different one. They can hear some things we don't hear, And so it's not just what we can see with the limitations of our faculties, but what actually exists in a manifest form or in a formless or in a formless form. And basically, it's anything that is subject to passing, subject to decay, subject to. Mm. That's a good question. I would say yes.
Can you repeat the question?
Thought as a non-manifest form. That was the question with thought. Now, it has its own category within the 5 aggregates, but it's so closely tied. I mean, they are strung together, aren't they?
That's why, I think that's why I asked the question last class, because I try to focus on thought as form and realizing that is emptiness. And so.
Yeah, but you focus where he said focus. If thought is one of the aggregates, and he talks about the aggregate of form, meaning that which and the reason why thought can be is because it arises, it abides, and it falls away. It's impermanent. So it's a dharma for sure. But what the eyes can see is where our real issue is, because this is the real world to us out here. And that's where we're stuck. That's the head honcho domino that needs to fall. That makes all the other ones be held in a right way, because ultimately you're going to go to form and emptiness, right? And you can't get to emptiness if if everything stops at tangibility, then you're not going to be able to get beneath tangibility. And so that's our Waterloo, that we have a concrete world of people and things, and that's the beginning. And he's saying what came before those concrete manifestations. There is something that brings them into manifestation. That's the emptiness that we're talking about. We're not talking about nothing. Something came out of nothing. We're saying all things come out of emptiness. Emptiness is just a word used to describe or imply that which originally brings forth something. And that's about as far as our critical thinking mind can take that. Now, if you start to get into different kinds of physics, you can maybe understand it in another way, but it's still in a head way. It's still in an intellectual way. And so a little bit of that is good, because it helps you accept things that you accept all the time. Just when it gets around this, it's like, well, I won't believe it unless I see it. But we believe a lot of things we don't see. A lot, a whole lot. I've never seen a bacteria, and I believe in them. I've never seen a virus, and I believe in it. So so when we say, well, I'm scientific, I got to have the proof. There's lots of things we don't have proofs for. And we hold tight and fast to that every day. But if you challenge my view of something, then you're challenging me, who I am and what I hold. And then it's on now. It's game on, and so that's just the selfing. That's just how the ordinary mind works. Once one realizes the aggregate of form is being empty, one will naturally and easily realize the other 4 aggregates as being empty, one by one in sequence. So instead of making so much of a connection to thought being form, you're making a connection to thought being empty. See, it's just where we're drawing out associations. It's just like if you enroll in this course, you learn how to make the associations that do something for you, right? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like learning thoughts phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this whole thing.
But I love the way your mind works. I do. That's why you're going to know things. Yeah, I really do. It's a lot like mine. It goes all around in circles. And I arrive at a spot, but I can tell you, I got a whole bag of goodies that I'm bringing back with me when I get back there, because I've been all over the place, So I get it. I get it. It's wonderful. Um, that's why I'm 25, in a 73-year-old body. I mean, I really see the illusory nature of age. I do. Hmm. Once one realizes the aggregate of form is being empty, one will naturally and easily realize the other four aggregates as being empty, one by one in sequence. Uh, and so, with that kind of mind, back to you for a second, sister. Um, some people have a lot of difficulty in loosening, but some people are so loose that they have to do a little bit of constraining, you know. Um, and especially some of us who've had some training in how to get out of our minds. Um, yeah. Well,
It's so open-ended.
I mean, some of us. I'm a product of the '60s, so we did a lot of experimenting with mind altering drugs and stuff like that. And and it's coming back around again, and I say that it really can expose you to some things, but I'm not sure that's the best way to do it. Um, I read that the Dharma of emptiness that follows is different from the earlier one and is a higher level Dharma of emptiness. This is what he's saying. What I said to you about emptiness before. Now I'm trying to take you a little bit deeper. The emptiness that we're talking about here refers to true emptiness based on prajna. That's the difference between taking drugs for mind altering experiences that change how you see reality. It's not based on prajna. It refers to illusory forms being inherently devoid of selflessness. It refers to the entity itself, the essence being empty, or the emptiness of emptiness. The emptiness I'm speaking of here does not mean vanishing or leaving nothing. It doesn't mean completing the process of impermanence and after completing that process, shifting to another location, thereby upholding the principle of the conservation of matter. So, talking about matter, or energy uh, can be neither created nor destroyed. He said there's something even higher than that. So, that's not what I mean here. I'm talking about the true emptiness based on prajna. Prajna based true emptiness is a state in which one uses the illumination of prajna wisdom to illuminate the emptiness. The emptiness that is illuminated is the state devoid of form or characteristics. Being inherently devoid of self nature is their essence or basic quality. Being devoid of what kind of nature? Self nature. So when I was reading what is cultivation, and I got to that section about renouncing greed, I hold no attachment in my mind to anything that I do to benefit living beings. I cultivate non attachment to all of my good actions of body, speech, and mind. Thus, my actions become natural and spontaneous, not contrived. Something can be contrived in a good way as well as a bad way. But here it's talking about having a completely different view that instead of being able to even see what good I do for others, all I can see when I look out is what good has been done for me. And that's the kind of fundamental shifts that occur as we are advancing in this Dharma. You see, How could you make that up? Can't make that up. It has to, yes. You can't make that up. That's a fundamental shift that comes from when one has reached a tipping point, moving outside of self. Then they start to see what there is on the other side of self. You see? So this gives us a great hope of what is in store for us as we walk this path. But part of it is that we have to walk it with ease. We have to find the right place for ourselves. And knowing yourself is what it's all about. You're not going to know any Dharma outside of your own self. How can you give certificates in this? You know, when Buddha Master says for us to open up the Learning from Buddha Academy, Academy Academics, you know, there's this class on charisma, how to develop charisma. They tell you how to hold your hands, how to move your body, how to, you know, and all of that. But that's what happens when scholars get all wrapped up in things and it's out here teaching of out here performance. But charisma is not really that. It's not how you hold your hands. You know, there's a certain dunamis and power that's in you that comes forth that connects with people. That's what charisma is. Mm. And but I look at how they have crafted it into a course, you know, that you could take. And that's how we do with the Dharma. It cannot be crafted into the courses in the way we think of courses, unless we're just going to make something. Yeah. And it will do some good. But if you know, shooting at a target, aim for the bullseye. Actually, I think I want to leave us right here. Oh, good. I'm early. Yeah. Oh, for those of you who don't know, we dropped one class day and we extended the other two classes by half an hour. So, but it's ended for today. Last paragraph. Therefore, I will clearly tell you that having listened, which I'll have to go back and bring you all up to this, but this is a good ending for today. It talks, oh no, I guess I could save it because I'm going to talk about the three doubts. You all can remind me if I start to talk about something else next class. I'm going to talk about the two doubts of Hinayanist view and the three doubts of the Bodhisattva view. Well, I'll read this because it's just so good. Okay. I'm just going to read one sentence, though. I'm not going to read all of it. There is, so you can think about it, there is no need to wait until one realizes the emptiness of self. Because you can see that's a long process, right? There's no need to wait until one realizes the emptiness of self, since the aggregate of form is inherently empty. That means that everything is empty. The chair is going to decay and it's no longer going to be a chair. It's going to be wool, fabric, and metal, and then that'll even break down into whatever that breaks down into. Everything at some point in time is going to break down. It'll no longer be what it was, right? Says that's why there's no need for you to come to the full realization of the emptiness of self, you know, before you recognize the emptiness of everything. Take it all together. I am inherently empty, you know, this sense of self, and and everything else is too. And when you keep looking at that, you'll realize that there's no need to wait until you realize the emptiness of um, of self to start working now on the emptiness of things. You'll take it all together, and life will just sort of like become like a dream. Something can be happening, and you're already seeing through it, and you're understanding the causes, conditions, or you don't understand the causes and conditions, but you know there are causes and conditions, so you don't see that thing that is manifest as the thing, but that it has manifest only according to other causes and conditions. And it starts to hold less of, it has less of a hold on you. And you start to live then in two worlds. One is a very concrete world. I'm not going to walk in front of a bus, because I'm empty. And at the same time, it just shifts everything from being so concrete. But as you do that, you start to cross, for lack of a better word right now, I'll just say you start to cross into different dimensions of reality that are all here, all uh, accessible. It's just we only vector into the spaces that we can see. And when that starts to become more decompartmentalized for us, then it's like getting LASIK surgery. You start seeing things that you haven't seen with that ordinary eye. And you start to know things that you haven't heard, haven't known before, or things that you didn't study, or things, that you weren't taught. And next time we come, I'm going to let Soma give just as much as you want to share. Not all of it, but just a light testimony, because I think it's important for us to know and to recognize things. So I'm always talking about how I get a signal, right? And how I like hear something, or how I hear a voice. And she'll tell you about it on Sunday for herself. She calls me, Venerable, I gotta talk to you. I got a signal. She said, I heard a voice. And the voice said, and it proved out what the voice said to do was, was because something was going to happen, but she got it before it happened. And although she couldn't intercede because, I don't know, she didn't get there in time, she heard it in time, in time. And this is how these things happen to us. So just hold everything loosely, Don't force yourself to believe anything specific, and don't withhold from yourself anything that just might be true. Yeah. And enjoy yourself. Enjoy the people you encounter this week. Enjoy the things you do. If you don't really, like love it, just decide, well, do you want to do it? Yes.
No Sangha Sunday.
Yeah. So we have a retreat coming up this weekend, and so we will not have Sangha this Sunday. So I'll see you next Wednesday then. Okay. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you, no danger. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life.